Beginning ODO podcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the ODO podcast, where I have thrown the format out the fucking door because it's really hard for me to do a formatted interview. That's just it. That's the gist of it. I can't do those anymore. Questions are hard. Staying on topic is hard. It's more fun to just talk to people who are as silly as I am, or cool people that I cannot believe I've managed to get on the show. But I have, wait for it, all the way from Perth, Australia, I have the Paul, I'm not going to butcher your last name, from the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews.
Thanks so much, Adam, for not butchering my last name and for having me on today, tonight, whenever your listeners are listening. It's a pleasure to be here.
What do they say on the feed? Good generic time of the day to you.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm kind of fangirly here because never did I possibly consider the option of maybe ever getting to talk to you.
Oh,
because like, even with, like, I've heard you and Wayne on Epic Film Guys, and I've heard them on your show and Emily Prokop on your show. And I'm like, the time difference is staggering. And I realize with those guys, they're all on the East Coast of the States. So it's basically like a day. It's like a 12-hour flip. So we've got a 15-hour difference because I'm happy and live on the West Coast where nobody fucking lives. And so it's like over here, it's tricky for me working out time zones with people here in the States. You're on the other side of the world. And so that's always fun adventure.
but we managed it.
We have managed it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool and awesome.
Go us.
But for those of you who maybe weren't around and listening to the show way back when I originally featured you guys, tell my listeners out there about you and the Countdown.
Well, the Countdown, and thank you for featuring us all those episodes ago. It was a really nice, pleasant surprise. Sometimes, you get pretty shocked that anyone listens, but then for someone to take the time to talk about you on their podcast is it's a real feather in the cap, or it's a real, like, hey, we must be doing something right. So thanks. But yeah, our show is basically my best friend and I, Wayne, who in an uncouth and very bad words are used a lot, swear words are used a lot. I should warn, not safe for work entirely. We count down a topic from 10 to 1 each week, as movie or TV related, and compare our lists against one another and argue our points of view. Sometimes it's all nice and cuddly, and other times we get stuck right into each other because that's part of what we find amusing to do.
Other times the soundboard has a little bit sharper sound drops.
That's right. There is a soundboard which I utilize against Wayne because he is less choosy with his words than I am. So that's an easier way to defend myself than I would say lowering myself to his level. He would say raising myself to his level of comedy.
It is funny that you basically turn his own words around against him.
That's it. He does. We did debate that, and we continue to debate it to this day, whether it's too confusing for listeners. But most of the fans of the show seem to enjoy it. So for now, at least, it will stay, although it may not stay forever.
Yeah, I think if you're a new listener and you don't realize that, like, your sound drops are clean. It is so, like, if you didn't know better, then yeah, you wouldn't realize that he didn't just say that unless you realize until he starts cussing over himself.
That's right. And he makes a real effort to talk over himself so people will realize.
Yeah.
Which is probably pretty smart, if I'm fair.
Yeah. It's a nice little thing, because otherwise you're like, man, this guy repeats himself a lot.
It's just the same thing, the exact same inflection, a lot.
But I'm pretty sure I started listening to you guys because of the Epic Film Guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's one of those, like, I cannot, and it's one of those things where I've been listening to you guys for so long. I can trace you listening to you back to them, but I can't remember why I started listening to them.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they've been around for just a little bit less time than we have. Very similar sort of start dates within 2 or 3 months, I would think. So that's over 4 years ago.
Yeah. I think all of our shows actually started in very similar time frame. I started looking back. I was like, oh yeah, we're all in the 4-ish year range.
Yeah. Yep. In our case, we're 4.5, and March 2015, we kicked off late March.
Yeah, and I started this show in July of 2015. So we're all in that same
exactly
area.
around the time the Epic Film guys started off.
Yeah, and so it's like but I remember, very quickly I was like, oh no, these guys, I fucking love these guys. I've got to, and it's like I'm hooked. You guys are just hilarious, and
thank you. It's again very much. It's really kind. I'm blushing here,
and I still will say Wayne laughs like a hyena in the best possible way.
I know it's accurate.
But getting on your show is on my bucket list, but it's tricky enough. The scheduling because of time zones and life and because I live on the opposite time of everybody else in the world because I work graveyards. It's like when everybody else is at work, I'm recording podcasts. I'm like, well, who's available? Hey, I can call somebody from the other side of the world.
That works.
That works.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure we can get something going in due course. We tend to have pairs now on the show, so maybe we can find another good indie podcaster and pair you up with, and you two can put your list together versus ours type thing. Or we may, I'm moving towards one day finally dividing Wayne and I up and having a guest on each of our teams. That just requires 3 separate recordings. And in Wayne's case, he's a bit of a noob when it comes to, or he'd be hamstrung when it comes to technology behind podcasting. So it may not work on that level.
Yeah. Sometimes the technology of it all does get tricky. If I weren't such a nerd for just like, okay, how do I do this and how do I do that? I wouldn't be able to do half of what I do now. It's a fun, complicated thing doing this whole podcasting business. But
we love it.
It's exactly. After 4 years and we're still doing this crazy shit. What the hell's wrong with us? We have lives and families and stuff. What the hell?
Most shows have well and truly faded out by the 4-year mark, so we must be doing something right.
Yeah. Or we're just too stubborn to quit.
That too.
It's a little of both. But as it is, see, I'm stupid. And we had all these fun things we talked about before I went and, spieled up the intro and all that. And so, like, we brain fries. See, that's the thing. It's early in the morning for me. Like probably 3 or 4 hours earlier than I would normally be sitting at my desk. And for you, it's almost bedtime.
Well, to be fair, one of us had only 2 more hours than the other person in the last, of sleep in the last 18 hours. So there you go.
Yeah. Sleep is, sleep when I'm dead, maybe. That's a firm maybe. But I'm happy to have, seriously, I don't care what the hell we talk about because holy shit, I got you on here. I'm just that nerd. And really, I've managed to wrangle up and get people to agree to come on the show and talk to me that I never would have thought I'd ever get to talk to.
Well, that's because you do a lot in the community, the podcasting community, and, you're such a supporter of other people's shows and very positive person. So, yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I sort of said, hey, well, if you want a hand, I'm happy to volunteer. And I'm sure lots of other people are exactly the same way. Yeah,
so that's weird for me. I don't think I do anything other than just say, hey, man, you should check this out because, man, these guys are fucking funny. It's like, oh, yeah. And then, if you have a problem with language, that's why I actually swear in the intro. is the whole like, hey, if you're going to have a problem with language, you're going to figure this out in the first minute and you're going to click away.
Yeah.
Because I actually did get somebody who left me a comment or like who DM'd me on Twitter who was saying this like, oh yeah, I really like your show, but the swearing is really distracting. I was like, you have such an upbeat personality in that, but all of the F-bombs really pull me out of your story. I'm like, motherfucker, there's a big red tag on the bottom of that thing that says explicit. I literally swear in the intro. There's no two ways about it. Like, this is not a happy parenting show. I'm not advertised as a parenting show other than the fact there's dad in the title. It's because it was a nice pun. It was just nice wordplay for the name. My wife came up with it and it wasn't taken. And that's it. It's like originally the show was supposed to have a parenting tilt. And yeah, I couldn't do that. I was like,
I tried.
I tried to do the parenting thing and I was supposed to like talk recipes and like life as a dad at home and the work-life balance and all that. She's like, no, I just have to bullshit for however the hell long and be a snarky asshole. That's kind of what I do. That's my thing.
That's my shtick.
Yep.
And I'm sticking to it.
Damn it. I know how to be a snarky asshole and sometimes I talk about dad life. That's what the show is.
That's as far as I can commit.
Yep. You guys get to be snarky assholes, but you get to talk about a subject, and that's the difference here. But for me, I look at like everybody else who has a podcast about a thing. And like, I don't know how you guys come up with we're going to talk about this thing and can focus and just talk about a thing, because I can't talk about a thing for 5 minutes. I'm on to 5 other things. It's like I used to say, like, we start the train at the beginning of the show. It's going off the rails very quickly. Like,
I make no promises. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Do you find any difference in sort of response to shorter episodes versus longer episodes?
I get very little response to anything. I notice higher profile guests might get more draw, but that's about it. And for the most part, my guests are all podcaster friends up to this point. For some reason, my introvert turns off when the mic comes on, and I want to talk to podcaster people and talk to people on mic if I'm out in public, stay out of my bubble. But when I'm on mic, I want to talk to people, and I want to talk to podcast people and people who make things and do things. And I like stories, and I like people's stories about what they're doing and what the hell's going on and all blah, 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 blah. All of that shit. I don't necessarily even care. Some of the shows that I've started listening to and shows that I've worked on as an editor, I'm like, I would never listen to this. Like under any other circumstances, I would never have sought out this show just in general from the description. Title, description, meh, not for me. But then I listen to it and the stories that the people are telling, I'm like, I'm hooked. I'm going to keep listening to this show because these people have great stories. And that's what really sucks me in. And that's why I really wanted to have guests on the show finally. It only took me 3 years to start doing it. But everybody else like, oh yeah, have guests on your show and be a guest on others. Like, motherfucker, I don't have that kind of time. Like, I got 4 kids.
It is a lot more work, for sure. Not just the syncing up of diaries and the like, but the editing is that much harder. And yeah, there's obviously boons to it. Like you said, some of the guests you've got on bring a audience.
There's good and bad sides to it. I mean, there's,
Which part? The podcasting or the parenting?
Little A, little B. Occasionally you have that reminder of this is why some animals eat their young.
Or just walk away and say, good luck to you.
Yep. It's like maybe like that's why sea turtles just abandon all the babies. Like, you imagine like 150 babies. Mom, fuck. Like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm going to be 100 miles away by the time these guys all hatch.
And let nature sort them out. Your family is that much bigger than mine, as we discussed previously, so life's a lot simpler in my house. It's a lot more sedate most of the time.
Yeah. And you have a daughter, and I've got
right. Yep.
4 boys. So,
oh yeah, okay. That must be fun.
Yeah. To a certain degree, I feel bad for my wife, but we also we're at the point now where we're like, we've got this boys thing down. If we had a girl now, it would just screw with everything. It's like,
Starting from scratch.
it's like, we know how to deal with boys. We can just go through that. And as much as my wife, we're like, we can't have any more kids, just medical reasons. We can't have more kids.
Oh boy, would you have had more if you could?
You know, maybe we'll want to have a girl. Like, so I'm sorry. So far, this coin has flipped heads 4 times. Our odds aren't improving. And like, do we really want to flip this coin again? Even with the risk. It's like, there's a chance that when we catch that coin, it's going to blow our hand off. So let's not.
Nah, let's just leave it at that. Yep.
And
Smart move.
Yeah. And now she's got a thyroid condition, and she's got blood pressure meds and thyroid meds she takes. And apparently they have a side effect of possible severe birth defects. So we're like, nope, no more kids.
Absolutely not. Of course not.
4 is good. 4 is plenty. At this rate, by the time the youngest graduates from high school, the second will be graduated from college. So we're good.
That's it. We're covering the spectrum, and all we need to do is borrow 1 kid to make a basketball team. So we don't really need much more.
And that was the thing. She was like, oh yeah, it's like, we'll just have a whole football team. I was like, no. She didn't even want kids. She just wanted to be an old cat lady. And then we started having kids, and then we kept having kids. And it's like, went from, I don't want kids to, why do you have 4?
That does seem odd.
And I had 8 cats when we met. When my wife and I first got together, I had 8 cats.
What? Really?
We had originally picked up a stray and took her in. She got out. She got pregnant. It just snowballed from there. And so it was like 3 litters later, I still had 7 of her kittens and her. So
no, we have 2 cats, and that's plenty.
Yeah. Now
Again.
I've only got 2 cats.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, my wife has a cat and I've got a cat, and it's more of the cats decided that, no, I belong to you.
And that's what happened. Okay.
It's like, now we've got Toby and Fluffy. And damn it, I really wish they hadn't named that cat Fluffy, because she just responds to it. It's like, fuck, I would any other name. Really? Why did you have to name the damn cat Fluffy? It's a cop out. It's like, your other cat had a cool name. Your other cat was Chief. Why the hell did the girl get the shit name? Generic cat name. What the hell?
I would guess she is fluffy.
Quite a bit, yeah.
There you go.
Like, it would be better if she was called Fluffy, but she was hairless. But then, then you get that like hipster irony thing going, and then you just look like a douche.
It's hard. These cat names are very serious deals.
Yes. So we have Fluffy and Toby, because that makes about as much sense as anything. Naming pets. How do you name your pet? You just pick a fucking name, because it doesn't matter. It's a pet. The names usually make no sense. And if it does make sense, then it's weird. Our Dalmatian was Emmett, because we got him from my sister, who was a Dallas Cowboys fan. And so he was Emmett for Emmett Smith. Like, oh my God, you're a fucking nerd.
I'm just going to make noise like I understand what you're talking about there, but NFL, not big on our radar over here.
Yeah. I'm not a sports person at all. I just know, it's like knowing pop culture references for me. It's like, oh yeah. And the guys at work will talk about different athletes, and they'll talk about, like, oh yeah, this insert baseball person here. I'm like, oh yeah. No clue who you're talking about, man. Like, dude, I barely understood that you were talking about baseball. So yeah, I'm not a sports person. I just for some reason, I like collecting pop culture references. So I kind of can get through that. Like, I know more about the Kardashians than I want to. But, you know, when they pop up on the fucking news feed all the time, they're like, oh, look, Chloe's got new bangs. Like, how is that news? Why is that on the news? It's a fucking haircut. Calm down. But I know too much about pop culture, celebrity stuff. And as much as I hate that it's there, I still fucking click the stupid article. So I'm just feeding that beast.
There, I guess, it's part of your show would be being across news and weird stuff like that. And based on your Facebook feed as well, some of the stories you put there do make me laugh.
That's why I do that. Sometimes you need to laugh at somebody really being stupid, you know, trying to fuck a beer bottle.
Yeah, they're the stuff. Again, I would imagine your listeners respond to that too. There's some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Amusing stuff anyway.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm going to get into juicing. And, you know, it's really, you know, vegetables and fruit are really good for you. So I'm not going to eat them. I'm going to make a smoothie and I'm going to inject them into my veins because that's totally a good idea. I don't know why I like going, that one I seem to go back to when I need an example of somebody being really fucking stupid. Cause laughing, cause it's the most fun part of podcasting is just I get to be a clown. I get to come up here and be a clown because at the end of the day, that's what I am. I want to make people laugh, even if I'm, you know, being kind of an asshole about it. I want to make people laugh. And that's the point. I want to entertain. For some reason, I have this desire to be an entertainer here. And then I talk about other people like you who are much better at this shit than I am.
No, not better. Different. Just different.
See, because I just bullshit for an hour. You know, you guys plan stuff. And that's why I was like, no, y'all are better at this. Y'all have plans and notes and ideas and subjects and can pick a thing. And I just like, you know, shake my head out and onto a microphone and see what falls out. That's what I open my mouth, words come out. I have no clue what's going to happen. You guys have plans and boards and stuff, even if Wayne isn't looking at it. You guys have a board.
Yes, there's a thing plugged in that we can make amusing noises, and yeah, we have a topic that we go in, and yeah, I guess in that sense, our show is very different. It is very structured, and we try and we figure our personalities come out as through those discussions that we have, rather than sort of stopping and checking in and about the first 10 or 15 minutes of an episode being about our specific lives. And you know, some people like that and some people don't, but that's the way that we've decided to roll with it.
Yeah. Like, I think if we're in the entertainment, if you're like an entertainment podcaster, like I'm kind of there, but for like you guys, like you talk about movies and do, you know, all your top 10 lists. And I have to go back to when you guys did the TV theme songs a little while ago. And
back.
Singing along to every fucking one of them. Like the whole, like that whole, both those episodes, I was like, I'm just sitting there, just lit up. I was just so happy hearing all these themes over again. It was like, yes, it's like it's just like a nostalgia wave for both of those episodes. And
they were fun. They were a lot of fun, those ones. And as you can tell, because we couldn't restrain ourselves sometimes from singing along whilst we were, you know, sort of playing the theme songs live as we recorded.
And for those of us who do podcasts for the purpose of entertainment, it's like, yeah, you bullshit for a while. You sit there and talk and you express your personality and how is life, because like our show is about us. It's us and us talking about a thing. It's, you know, just go back to if the Epic Film guys dropped in to just do your show straight in your place, it wouldn't be the same. It's their personalities. It's not the same show. Mm-hmm. Just like, I mean, like, and you guys have been on each other's shows, but it's the Epic Film guys are their personalities and you guys are your personalities. And the shows are completely different because of that. It's like, and you're both talking movies, but your personality is what makes the show. And that's what you go for. And So, you want to know the personal stuff because that's what you're there for, the personalities of the hosts, versus if I was listening to a show where I'm trying to learn something.
That's not our show.
But we live in the happy bubble that is entertainment podcasting, where our job is to make the listener happy, basically.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Yeah. As Wayne is wont to say on our show, as long as you're listening, we don't care. Whether we get it right or get it wrong, as long as you're entertained, that's what it matters.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like we aim to entertain. Some people do it better than others. And, I love that I've made friends in this, and that's probably like the biggest thing is like, I've made friends like you guys who are so awesome and so cool and so damn funny that I wish I could interact with you guys more.
Yeah. I think you said something before, which has really resonated for me. And that is that just getting to meet people and get to form connections and friendships with people that, I would never have met probably in 1,000 years just without this sort of podcasting gig. It kind of brings people together in ways, and because we're all part of the indie scene, none of us is a big, huge success that makes, a living out of doing this. Everyone just has everyone else's back, and that's really nice. Well, and if they don't, then I guess they drop out of that sort of network pretty quickly. But you mentioned the Epic Film Guys. We've talked about them a couple of times, and they're sort of my earliest friends that I made through podcasting. And then, over time, being people like yourself and some of these Australian podcasts now, which they're all on the other side of Australia, which I get to travel to occasionally, and to get out and have a few beers with them and sit down and not just discuss podcasting, but just to discuss life. And yeah, there's some really great people in this world, and podcasting is another way that brings us all sort of closer together.
Yeah. I mean, and, people talk about, the social media is making people so impersonal, but between like the podcasting community, we all thrive in social media because it brings us all together, because we go from listening to each other's shows and then we reach out and we build these bonds and these friendships through all of our social media connections. Just like, hey, that was a really funny episode, turns into a conversation, which turns into a friendship. And now you've got friends all over the world, and people that you would have probably never even considered saying 2 words to now know all of your kids on a first name basis and things like that. And, they're like, hey, I'm going to be through town and you're offering up a couch to crash on or whatever. Or, hey, like, we want to meet up for a beer later. And it's somebody that 6 months ago, and you may have never seen that, like actually met them in person. I know you guys know Mike Jolitz.
Yeah.
Like Mike Jolitz lives 5 minutes away from me.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. It's one of the craziest things. Mike Jolitz literally lives about 5 minutes away from me. Never met him.
Oh, I thought you were about to say that, we hang out and have a drink every so often. And
we've to this day, we've been friends for probably about 2 years now. And we still have never actually met in person. And then other people like Gareth and Bex, who are trying to come to America, or Heather from Sunshine and Power Cuts, where they're trying to come to America to meet all of their podcaster friends that are on the other side of the world. And we're like, yes, like I want to like sit down and have dinner with you people that I only know from interacting through your podcast, but like we have that connection through this big, amazing indie podcast community. And I don't even remember if I was recording when I said this, but like the whole, like my introvert turns off when the mic is hot. Like I think it's Emily from Story Behind and Hate to Wait, where she says like, she's full blown introvert unless there's a live mic in front of her. Then she just empties her soul onto the microphone. And I'm kind of the same way, but like we live in our little introvert, isolation bubble. But in podcasting, I talk to everybody and I have friends everywhere. And I'm not that guy anywhere else. But that's what podcasting has done. It's brought us all together and brought your crazy ass and my crazy ass all the way 15 hours apart and all the way around the world from everything's going to kill you to most of the stuff's going to kill you.
But be wary wherever you are.
Yes. Should be careful. That is still, it's always funny when people talk to Paul Chomo from Varmints. And he's like, basically the scale of death seems to go Australia, Arizona, Florida.
Are we talking, is it the alligators in Florida that escalate things?
Yeah, primarily alligators and the big pythons. And all the golf courses and the alligators on golf courses, and every so often you see those videos of Gatorsaurus, and you got that 20-foot alligator that would eat your van. And
I've seen Crawl. I don't need to ever visit Florida, except maybe Disney World, I guess, one day.
That's something I've never done. I've never been to Disney, but I'm like, no, I'm actually cool. And it's expensive as fuck.
Yes, that part is true.
It's going to be like $3,000 for us to go to Disney. I'm like, no, that's too much.
That's crazy money. Yep.
Like, I'm sorry. 3 days in Disney is going to cost me more than a week driving back home to visit family. Mickey Mouse isn't that much of a draw for me. Sorry.
I rest my case. I've got my 6.5-year-old badgering me severely about going to Disney. So, yeah, at some stage, I suspect we'll be caving to that demand.
Yeah. We're at least we can play it up. It's like, no, we're not going to go until all the boys are old enough to appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I'm also, and also in our case, she's old enough to sit on the plane that for basically 24 hours and not drive me insane.
Yeah. And it's like, you've got the fun. I was like, $3,000 for me going to Disney is nothing for you. That's like your plane tickets.
Yeah, it would be. In fact, probably even more than that. Oh, not American dollars. That'd be about right. Yeah.
And I have somewhat of a reference for that because my stepmom is actually Filipino. And so she flies back every year to visit her parents. So like I'm familiar with the cost of that sort of trip and the time. Like, that's a long time to be sitting in a box.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, when you live in the most isolated capital city of more than 1 million people in the world, you don't have a lot of choice. It's get on a plane or drive a long, long way in your car and then get on a boat. Well, actually, you don't have to drive very far in a car to get on a boat, but you don't get very far on the boats that leave from here.
Yeah. And I mean, and I say, oh, you're going to spend a day in a box just to get somewhere, but I drive for 20 hours every summer to go back to Texas. So
wow, that's how long it takes, 20 hours to get across the country. Okay.
That's like 2 states away. But Texas
is pretty big, right?
Yeah. Texas it's like 11 of those 20 hours are in Texas.
Yeah. Because
of the fun little trivia bit, I say, is from Amarillo, Texas in the northwest corner to Brownsville, which is the southern tip, is actually a further distance than from Amarillo to LA.
Wow.
Holy shit. It's like Texas is annoyingly large.
I'm not sure Texans would think that.
Oh, well. Texas can kiss my ass. I'll say it. Realize my wife is a native Texan. I don't care.
I will take my life in my hands.
Like, Texas is a pain in the ass. It's too damn big and it's too much open nothing. You drive for way too long in Texas without seeing jack shit.
Yeah, I've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, so I can attest to that.
It's like, that's why all those movies take place in Texas, because there's enough empty, open bullshit. I'm pretty sure I've seen enough houses just driving down the highway where like they could totally have murdered somebody in that shack right there. I mean, it's just a shack in the middle of a field, in the middle of a valley, and there's nothing else around for about 10 miles.
It's suspicious. I told you, suspicious.
It's like this. I'm not saying somebody got murdered there, but I'm saying it's entirely possible there's several dead bodies hanging from meat hooks. Why is there a shack in the middle of a field and there's no road?
This makes no sense.
But before I go, because the original intent, because we've rambled and ranted, and I love just the randomness, because as much as because I love having people on the show, and my goal of people on the show is because, whenever you're invited, I'm sure you're invited to talk about movies. My big thing is always let you talk about other shit besides what you normally talk about, because everybody is, we all seem to have our thing. And I have the distinct advantage of my thing is just random bullshit. And so anybody can come on this show and just talk about whatever the fuck we're going to talk about. Whether we end up talking about podcasting or talking about kids and life and and crazy pets or air travel or whatever. But
we got through it all.
Yes, we cover all of the things. I love having people come on and talk about anything but what they're known for.
Mission successful then.
That is my goal with guests on the show, is to talk about anything besides their regularly scheduled. You're going to, like, if I see you on another podcast anywhere, there's a 90% chance you're talking about movies.
That's fair.
And that's my goal, is talk about everything else. And it's fun, and you just get to talk to everybody else, and everybody gets to come here and vent and whatever the fuck. And then because I'm that podcast nerd, I end up talking shop probably more than anybody really cares to listen. But for some reason, they don't click away, so they're gluttons for punishment, I guess. Then again, they did listen to my show in the first place, so I guess that answers that question. But before we wrap up this crazy ball of random that is this show, I do want to, because, the whole original idea for all of this was a lot of questions about your podcast listening habits. But I feel like I would not be doing this whole thing justice if I didn't at least ask if there was one podcast that you had to recommend, if complete newbie, never listened to podcasts before, what's the one show that you would actually suggest to others as kind of a starter show?
Ooh, you added that part in. It started show. Yeah, okay. Definitely wouldn't recommend our show to a first-time listener who'd never tried podcasts before. All right, so I'll cheat and work my way through some shows to mention. Look, I always have to throw a plug out to Nick and Justin and Loy Sources, the Epic Film guys. We've talked about them a lot in this episode, so I probably already hit that marker. Theirs is probably a little bit too detailed and full-on for a first-time podcast listener. So I'm thinking maybe something short and sharp, and just to get your head around, something you can probably listen to in one sitting. So some of the other shows I listen to, the biggest show I listen to probably in the, so to speak, indie world would be Skip to the End. And that again, that's a 2.5 hour show. So it's probably a lot to sort of take in. So if I'm going short form reviews, I have to probably say a little show from here in Australia. Well, I say a little show, they do very, very well for themselves. It's called We Watch the Thing with Billy and Topher. And they just do this really short form, 20, 25 minutes usually. Sometimes they go a bit over that, but review of a film. And they are quite, they're good mates, a little bit like Wayne and I, and they give each other a fair bit of hassle, a bit of shit. But they're also, one's a cameraman and one is a VFX artist in film. So they actually know what they're talking about. They have a lot of technical know-how. And so you get the best of both worlds. It's entertaining, but it's informative, and you learn a lot listening to them as well.
Yeah, I love those. They're so great. And I love the technical side of it that they give. I look at them, and it's like listening to you and Wayne dialed down a little bit. It's like turn down the profanity and turn up the technicality. Yeah, because of because of their experience in the industry.
Yeah, they're very, very knowledgeable, and they're particularly Billy. I haven't spoken a lot to Topher other than when we've recorded together, but Billy is just a little bit like you, Adam. He's just one of the nicest guys, and falls over himself to help out our little show sometimes by putting his technical wizardry together to like put Wayne's face over the top of Psy for Gangnam Style video while
that was great. Oh my God, I love that.
We're doing the Wayne song and things like that. He's a champ. So yeah, that's if you've never listened to podcasts before, that makes zero sense because here you are listening to this. But if if you get their chance and you never heard of We Watch the Thing, check them out. They're a great show. And I can sit here for probably the next 45 minutes or an hour just giving you a 3-minute review of 20 other shows I listen to every week as well, because there's some great shows out there. And yes, they are all sort of movie and TV related. But that's kind of my geekery. That's what I get on is film and television to a slightly lesser extent. So that's where I spend most of my podcast time.
Awesome. One more time, where can they find you at?
Probably the easiest way is these days just to Google the Countdown movie and TV reviews, and we'll pop up everywhere. We host through Podbean, so you can follow us there if you've got a Podbean account. We have a website, ccradio.com.au, which is part of the Comic Confidential Radio Network, which we're a proud part of. A whole bunch of other Aussie shows on there as well. And yeah, all the other usual stuff. Countdown PC on Twitter and I think Instagram, but I barely ever touch Instagram, so ignore what I said just there.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, the Instagram, it's there.
I'm too old for Instagram. That's for you crazy kids today.
Crazy kid. I'm going on 35.
That's a crazy kid by my reckoning.
Yeah. But again, thank you so much, Paul. I'm still like awestruck that I got to have you here at all.
You're far too kind. Thank you.
And maybe someday I will get to join you guys. I honestly, every time I think about it, I'm like, I don't even know if I could put a top 10 list down together. I stopped putting in suggestions in your Facebook group because I just couldn't come up with shit. I'm like, I can't come up with a list, but it's a goal of someday I'm able to put together a list that's worthy of actually being part of your show.
Well, yeah, we'll work on it. And I'm sure sometime in the future we can organize something there, Adam. Thanks again.
Thank you, Paul, for coming on the show and putting up with my weird ass. That's going to be it for this week. You can catch me in all the places at Odd Dad Out on all the social medias or at oddadoutpodcast.com. Thank you for putting up with all of my inconsistencies this month as we're getting moved and all the things going on. And I will be back as soon as I get my house put together. Really, that's kind of it. But until then, oddballs, join the Facebook group, hit me up on all the social medias, leave me a voicemail. Links for everything are in the show notes, as always. I'm not going to say it all again here because I'm tired. But until next time, thank you and good night.